Hello, hello. This is Tammy Brunk, Earth Sky Woman, beaming to you live today with an oracle for the month of November 2025 and a full moon in Taurus report. All right, I'm just going to begin with a little bit about an overview of the month because it is a big month once again. All right, so just kind of diving right in there, we have got okay, we start the month, of course, with All Saints Day, Hallows Eve, Halloween, Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, Samhain in the Celtic tradition. So we know we're starting November as always with this movement into the where the veils are very thin and where we know that we are really feeling the those who have passed to the other side. We feel the dead, we feel our ancestors much more strongly right now. This is very sacred timing, as many of us can feel, many of us love this time of year because we can just feel the aliveness of it. We can feel that connection to the sacred on a level that it's just this time only comes once a year. So we open in that way, and then this window actually of Samhain, or of what is actually the cross quarter. It's the time between the fall equinox and the winter solstice. That's actually where all of these holidays are that's where they all kind of emerged. It's what they're all based on. Um, but often the exact astronomical point where the sun is exactly between the fall equinox and the equinox and the solstice is a number of days after, and that is true in this case, where it's not until Thursday, the 6th of November, that we have the sun at 15 degrees Scorpio. So that's the exact cross quarter. And then we also have the full moon in Taurus, which is lunar cross quarter because it's the full moon closest. So really, I'm saying all this just to say that if you feel like you haven't done as much work, you haven't really um, made your offerings, you haven't connected intentionally, you haven't made your altars, you haven't done any of those things that you might have wished to have done for various reasons, gone out and spent time on the land, under the sky, just really in a communion with the forces of life that are so alive right now. It's not too late. This entire week really still continues to carry that medicine even more potently on some level. So keep that in mind. All right. Okay, so now so we start the month, of course, with this magical timing, the sacred holy days of November. And then we also are going to, over the course of the month, we're going to have this super new moon, or full moon, is actually the biggest of the year. It's the biggest super full moon in a series of three. So it's a very powerful moon. I'm going to talk more about in a moment. And then we have Mercury retrograde this month. That's one of the big events beginning November 9th through the end of the month. Then we also have, um, well, it's interesting because Mars begins with this full moon as well. Mars is almost exactly opposite Uranus. So that's a very big activation, actually, that might not be getting as much press as it should. And so we've got this very powerful energetic of Mars, the sacred masculine, the energy, the vitality, the spark that helps us to move forward, and also the medicine of guardianship and the sacred protector energies. And we have that energy opposite to and igniting or ignited by Uranus, which is higher mind, higher consciousness. And Uranus also has the energy of like this lightning force that wakes us up. So there is this really powerful energetic between these very dynamic energies of Uranus and Mars. What does that mean for us? If you're feeling a shakiness or a lot of energy moving through your system, that's not surprising. Part of what it means is it's actually very important to move our bodies right now, and to be sure that we are finding ways to ground those energies into the earth. Because otherwise, what can happen when we've got these massive Uranus activations is that energy can kind of get stuck in our physical body and in our energy system. And it can be like a short circuit where we can feel very overwhelmed, or we can just feel an underlying sense of anxiety or fear even. And the reason is it's not even, or even very emotional or just stuck. And the reason isn't even our mind can make up lots of stories about it, but on some level, it can be useful to just understand, okay, my physical body and my energy body are navigating a tremendous amount of energy that is trying to move through my system. And I'm sitting so much, or I'm not moving my body enough. And so it can't move through, it can't activate in this beneficent way, because that's the desire actually, right? Is to help our bodies to receive this awakening kind of enlivening energy. So we want to be available to that by moving our bodies, by being out on the land, by being in contact with trees and with the forces of the natural world, because that's what helps us and our bodies to integrate all of that light and all of that energy in a good way. It's for us. It's like so many other things. What we often feel fear because we are feeling an influx of a lot of energy and a lot of change. But a lot of our work right now is to translate and transform that fear into aliveness, into excitement, into raw, fresh energy that we can use to move into the future with a sense of joy, actually, with a sense of possibility and hopefulness. So just remember that when you feel this fear sometimes, or overwhelm, or anxiety, maybe that energy is, and that is something that you simply are needing to put yourself into the right context. Again, moving the body, being out under the earth, on the earth, under the sky, so that you actually begin to translate it into aliveness. All right. And that's a big theme for the month as well. So, okay, so we've got, yeah, Mercury retrograde, and Uranus is moving back into Taurus. So that's quite the big deal. And then we have Saturn and Jupiter in a trine. We've actually got something that can be called a boomerang yod, that's also featured as part of this full moon with Venus and Uranus, and then Neptune and Saturn, all kind of in this, making this interesting astrological activation that also has a great deal to do with healing. It's not comfortable necessarily, but the opportunity is there for us to meet a lot of the deeper layers of. My sense is it's a lot of it is like pre-verbal experiences of disconnection or pain. I'll say for myself, what I have come to bump up against a lot is has to do with the experience I had at birth. I think a lot of what we are going through as modern humans is and it's not an accident actually, is that this age of separation, we could say, where the modern human, the grief in many of our hearts, or as a species, kind of the deeper um, sadness, is because we feel separate from our bodies. Often we feel separate, like we many of us don't feel the depths of intimacy or bond or connection with other humans, or even animals or trees. We go through periods where we're very separate feeling, and that often begins at birth. And I'll say for myself, I was my mom was induced into in labor, and I was put into I was a month early, I was premature. I was put into an incubator for about 2 weeks, and that created this big experience as a baby of disconnect. And so that's something my whole life, I've been working with to try to make sure that I have to really work at getting my soul in this body. And that has been a lifelong journey. And I think that's true for many of us as humans, as modern humans, is that we have to have so much compassion for the places where we get separated, and we have to just come home to what's true, and release the places of judgment or shame around ourselves or even our species, I would say, because this is simply part of our evolutionary journey. It's part of our process. And we are thawing, we are coming more alive. And that's, again, not comfortable. I say that so many times, but also a lot of the beauty of that is that there's many of you that are listening who are having the time of your lives. You are coming into your full power. You are finding your place, you're finding your way. And for those of you who are not, it's coming. It's coming. We're all coming into this together. I deeply believe that we are in a massive evolutionary growth edge. And I don't think we're going to recognize who we are or where we're going or our world in a year from now. And I actually am going to be so bold as to say that I actually believe a year from now, there are a lot of issues that are going to be resolving. They will have been resolved. And that's because of the presence of so many of us who are taking the actions that our souls call for, moment to moment, day by day. Some of it is very, very, very dramatic, big, bold moves. Some of it is just the choice we make in the morning of our daily experience, where we decide that today I'm going to actually choose to come from a place of love. I'm going to choose to slow down enough to live from a field of gratitude and wonder for the beauty that's all around me. Sometimes it's going to be because I decide that I'm going to stand up for something I believe in, even though it's scary and my voice shakes because I know it's for me to do that. Sometimes it's going to be because I move beyond what is my natural comfort zone of being a bit more of a hermit, and I go and I reach out to someone I know um, would be good to connect with, because we can spark more life, more love, more beauty, more creativity together, right? So I think it's those little actions that make an enormous difference right now, and they can't be. And I think it's easy to not recognize the importance of them because of the scale of massive chaos and change that are unfolding around us. Um, I think for me, I've recognized part of my childhood pattern that I'm really healing in a big way right now is this sense that it's a big, scary world out there. And number one, it's my fault. Somehow I caused it personally. You know, that's like, and that it's my responsibility to fix it all by myself, right? Kind of ridiculous when you think about it that way. But that's the perspective of a baby or a child, right? And I'm not blaming that part of myself, but I think many of us have that part of us that we're healing. And so really we're not doing it by ourselves. We are doing it with each other. We are doing it in harmony with Mother Earth. We are doing it with our guides, our allies, our beloved ancestors. In no way, shape, or form are we alone. We are always connected to divine, to spirit, to God. If you want to say God, I think God is a wonderful word to use sometimes when it comes from a place of true resonance inside of us. And it is the form of God that is um, loving, inclusive, and in service to wholeness. All right. So we also, yeah, so there's so much going on. And even by the end of the month, we've got Saturn and Jupiter, they're in a trine. And then the end of the month, they're also in that trine um, kind of aspect. So there's actually a lot of intensity this month, and then there's also a lot of blessing underneath. And I don't mean to be saying that there's a good, bad, like squares bad, conjunction is whatever, but I do feel that the all the sextiles and the trines and those kind of smoothing energies are very beneficial right now, that they're very helpful for us with a lot of dynamic, not as easy energies that we're also navigating. Okay, so with that, and of course, as always, you can kind of see when you look at my YouTube, I've got kind of a list of the major events that are going on, so you can look at those in greater detail. Oh, but the thing I didn't mention, which is also perhaps one of the biggest events that are happening right now, is that we have Venus and Mars both this month moving into the beams of the sun. So Venus has been morning star, Mars has been evening star, and they're both have been moving in such a way that they are going to be in the heart of the sun, January 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th, right around that timing. But right now they're both disappeared. So the ancients would have seen this as a time where the god and the goddess are in the underworld, undergoing a death and a rebirth process. So I don't know about you, but to me, this sounds and feels very powerful, very potent, and like the medicine that's really needed. So this is also connected to a course that you're going to see that I am just opening, that will be taking people through this passage in an intentional way, because it's not for us to do these things again alone. It's for us to do it together. All right. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and going to call up the chart for the full moon. And so you can look at that. We can look at that. We can dream into that together. And yeah, just one second. Let me do that. It's a really beautiful night out here. I wish you could see all my colors. There's just yellows and oranges everywhere. Okay, I'm back in Missouri. I was in New Mexico for a while. I just wanted to honor that because with the image that I chose for this full moon, I was out in Diné territory, Navajo lands again, and those lands are so near and dear to my heart because I was just so deeply influenced by the cultures of the Dene, the Hopi, and all in those regions as a young person, and feel so much of my heart connection there. Okay, so all right, here's this full moon. So here we have the full moon at 1322 um, Taurus, and of course the full moon is always the opposition between the sun and the moon. This one is it again, it's a super full moon, so we're really going to feel the energies. It is exact 7:19 a.m. on Wednesday, and so if you go out, and I love to do this, if you go out before sunrise on the 5th of November, then you're going to see the moon setting as the sun is rising, before the sun is rising. And you might also catch a glimpse of Venus, which is Venus, if you've got a good low horizon and it's dark in the east, you might still see Venus morning star, and you're not going to be able to see her much longer because right now, Venus, which I work with as the goddess, as Inanna, she has already gone through 7 of her moon gates in her morning star journey that began at the very end of March this year. And, she's been like traveling higher, higher, brighter, brighter up in the sky through May, June. And then she's been steadily dropping further, further closer to the horizon. Now she's pretty close to the horizon in the morning sky. And so there's the chakra gates that are activated by the crescent moon, and so she's gone through the root chakra gate. That's the as we're speaking, that is the chakra that we're all working with, that we're clearing, releasing, and it's very timely. This Venus cycle is very aligned with the seasons, and so that we go through the root chakra gate at the time, and then later this month on the 18th of November, she will be with the crescent moon in an eighth gate, which is the gate of intent, the death by intent gate, or the Earth Star chakra gate. And so both the root and the Earth Star have so much to do with working with our ancestors and doing the healing around our relationship with Mother Earth and the memories of what live in the earth. There's a lot of healing that happens around. All of the land has memories, just like our human bodies carry the memory of trauma. The earth herself carries that as well. Of course, that's not the only truth, because I think more and more what we're going to start recognizing is that our bodies and even our epigenetics, like the genetic memories from our ancestors, they don't just carry trauma, they also carry the beautiful memories, all the love that is. I mean, think about all of the love and the beauty and the creativity and the wonder and the magic and the good medicine that our ancestors have experienced. Think about all of the beauty and the wonder and the love and the mystery and the sacred ceremonies that have existed in these lands where we live, right? So let's also tune in consciously. This is something I learned that's easy to forget in this moment, where we sometimes as humans do also seem a little addicted to suffering and trauma. I'm not diminishing that there's challenge, but I also think it's good to keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on how much easier it can be to focus on what's difficult, what's hard, what's bad, and not to see the miracle, the beauty, the wonder of being alive right now. So yeah, so let's just also recognize that our bodies, our genes, our genetic encoding, the earth herself, we come from people, we come from times, we come from experiences that have also been filled with wonder, beauty, love, creativity, all those things. Okay, that feels important. And that's really relevant for the Taurus full moon, because Taurus as a sign, this is really like this is the Samhain full moon, but there's also the energy embedded within it because I say Samhain because it's the sun's at Scorpio, but it's the full moon at almost 15 Taurus, and that's the Beltane energies. So this full moon is carrying the energies of Samhain and Beltane, and what I mean by that is, um, those two sacred holy days carry the medicine of Taurus and Scorpio, and those two signs are the ones that are the most deeply rooted in the mysteries of aliveness and eros and just like this very potent, sensual, and dynamic uh, love for life, a passion, a zest for life. There's like, I'm here to be alive. I'm here to feel with all my senses. Taurus is the sign that is all about the garden of earthly delights. We just get to be in these physical bodies and see so much beauty with our eyes. We get to use all of our five senses. I always say with Taurus that if we actually embodied the true mysteries, the true essence of Taurus, if we as a human species remembered how to drop into the essence of Taurus, then we would no longer be these overconsumers. Because when you're really dropped into the medicine of Taurus, you are fully in your body, and you slow down enough that you are taking everything in consciously. I think of it as embodied prayer. Taurus is embodied prayer. So, like when you take that bite of chocolate, like you really savor it, you're present with it. When you are holding the hand of your lover, you are feeling, just like when you're a teenager, you're feeling all the sensations. You're feeling that gorgeousness of touch, of that gift of pleasure, of that sensation, that tactile sensation of being in a body. We get that when we're in a body. We get that as a human. You don't, so, according to what some spiritual guides would say, you don't get that anywhere else. That's part of why people come here. So if we're going to be here in these physical sensate bodies, are we going to enjoy that? Are we going to take in that sunrise, that sunset through our eyes and through our entire physical being to really nourish our biorhythms and really breathe in, drink in the sensation of being physical and being on the earth, petting our dogs, feeling the breath, the beauty of a clean breath of air, if we are able to have that. And with every breath of clean air, just offering a blessing to those who do not have access to clean air, that they may have that in the future. I had an interesting experience I'm going to share actually right now. And Ellen, if you're listening, I just have to. Um, so right before I came on here, I was going back and forth with a wonderful client and friend, and she is in Virginia, and she was sending me something in the mail, and she had just reached out because she had intended to send it today, and she said she's at UVA. She lives near UVA, the University of West Virginia. WVA, yeah. And she couldn't mail it because there were these alerts. There was a high alert, a potential shooter, something like that. And anyway, so of course, when she sent me that, I was immediately, as we do, just sending prayers and sending her love, and just really feeling a lot of compassion, as we do, for how hard it is in these moments when people are, we've all been in those situations. Um, and what she said was that it's actually quite common. And of course, that really, it really breaks my heart. And at the same time, even when I was responding to her, I was aware of this delicate tension between wanting to acknowledge what is, because it's so important, because that is a terrifying experience that many are going through, and also wanting to acknowledge and uplift in such a way as to remind her, because I could just see her there. As she said, they freeze when that happens, because that's what we do, right? And so, it's not like, as these light warriors, or as these beings of light who come here to bring beauty into the world, which I do feel that's why we're here. It's not like we're always doing things perfectly, or we know how to respond. Often we do freeze. Often, um, but I just reminded her that her light is really important for that place right now, because I know it is. I know her. She brings so much beauty into the world where she is, and she's a highly tuned, very sensitive instrument. as many very empathic and brilliant humans are. And so it can be, I think, exquisitely difficult to be in these moments. At the same time, I just know her light. It's so freaking bright. And so I just reminded her of that. And then like a second later, she said that that it had been lifted. Now, I mean, I'm not saying I caused that, right? But it is interesting how often we will have that experience that, and I think this is absolutely true. We don't know how powerful we are. We don't actually know how powerful our light is. And when I say light, I don't mean that we're some perfect like being. I mean all of who we are, like loving that, just and encouraging each other. I think that's important. I know that it makes a huge difference for me. I know that I have people in my life where when they just say, I can be having a really hard day, and if I reach out to them, I just feel like a human being again. And so we need each other right now. We absolutely do. All right, so but this full moon is a reminder of that sacred dimension of being human. We're in a body. We get to hug each other. We get to like, experience the beauty of this beloved earth. Yesterday, I went for a walk with a dear friend, and we walked across this bridge, and all of a sudden we saw there was a belted kingfisher that just landed, probably like, I don't know how many meters, not far at all, just right on the edge of the bridge. And it just continued like circling, like going back and forth and then catching fish. And then we saw a flicker, and then we saw another flicker. We saw four flickers, and there was just so much going on. And there's certain times of year where you just feel that it's not just the ancestors, the veil is thin, but all the creatures are feeling it. Everything's alive, celebrating life. It's important to celebrate life. So I feel like Taurus is very much about that. So this is a Taurus full moon. We get to really bask in that experience of being in a physical body and enjoying that and savoring that and celebrating that. All right. And then we've got also within this, again, like I mentioned, Mars and Uranus. So that's what I talked about before. You can see that 0 Gemini, 0 Sagittarius, because Mars just has moved into Sagittarius. So what's going to happen then is that we've got Mars is in Sagittarius now, which I actually think is going to feel kind of nice, like and a more of an expansive, forward moving energy. Thank you, Mars. And then we're going to have Venus moving into Scorpio. So just they're doing a handoff, So just as Mars has moved out of Scorpio, Venus is moving into Scorpio. Personally, I'm glad Venus is moving into Scorpio because my Mars is in Scorpio, and I don't want to miss all of the juiciness of Scorpio season. I want to just dig in there, and I just want to experience the healing that's possible and the aliveness and meeting my shadow in a way where I'm reclaiming my full, like all of me, more of me, right? So meeting more of my soul self. And of course, at the same time, Venus and Mars are entering the underworld, entering the beams of the sun. This is sacred timing. And Venus will be, so Mars is going to move into the beams of the sun, I believe, on the 13th of November until March 22nd, I believe, or near the spring equinox. So very long time. Mars is in there longer. And then Venus will be in the beams of the sun, invisible from about November 27th until February 17th. So they're both going to be doing this deeper work together. So I've already talked about that a bit. I think I'm going to just kind of leave it there, except again to just show you if you can see this. This is something that's unfolding. We do have Saturn and Jupiter both stationing direct. I'm sorry, Jupiter is stationing retrograde, and Saturn, yeah, they're both actually stationing. Saturn is stationing direct, Jupiter is stationing retrograde. And so because they're both going to be stationing later in the month, then they're both moving quite slowly. And so you can see this 25, 25, Cancer and Pisces, there's this trine that is active now, and that is really powerful, energetic, that is going to be felt all through the month. And to me, it feels like a very stabilizing energy. I really appreciate that there's this energy underneath. It's a water trine. And then you can see what I talked about. Here's Venus. Interestingly, Venus is opposite, continues to be opposite Chiron and Aries. We've talked about that already. There's this healing of the female warrior heart and an unleashing of the spiritual warrior in a sense. And so we've got the goddess herself in the peacemaking sign of Libra. opposite them at this full moon. I think that's also a very positive, beautiful aspect to tune into. And then we have this, so we've got, I talked about the boomerang yod. So that is where we've got Venus here um, in this interesting dynamic um, with Saturn. So here we've got Saturn and Venus, and they are in a not as harmonious aspect. And then we have Venus in um, a trine. Oh gosh, I'm getting this totally backwards. Um, okay, yes, Venus is in a square to Jupiter. Okay, and then Venus is in a square to Pluto. So that's part of the yacht experience. And then you've got also she is in an opposition to Chiron and Aries. So there's actually a a grand cross that is being activated here, which there's an out of sign part of that right here. So there's a grand cross. And then we have Venus, which is in this relationship with Pisces that is an inconjunct. Okay. So inconjunct is what causes part of that yod energy, that there's an uncomfortable kind of energy that's needing this sort of alchemical resolution to happen. So you can see all of that's happening, all these trines. There's so much dynamic energy here. So with that grand cross energy, that's going to shift pretty quickly because Venus moves pretty quickly. Um, but you still have that T square. You've still got a T square with Jupiter, Chiron, and Pluto. That there is this with the squares, I've often felt there is this kind of dynamic energy where we can feel kind of frozen. Um, but that frozen energy actually, what it really wants is for us to come into presence sufficiently that it can soften. No, it's tricky because when I say come into presence, like I'd mentioned before, it doesn't mean just keeping your body kind of stuck in one place, which is easy to do right now, necessarily. Like I've found for myself, I do sometimes need these times where I can just, whether I'm writing, journaling, meditating, whatever, that I actually do need sometimes to just go really deep in my process and not move my body very much. And part of that is like a being really present and focused. That's also Scorpio energy. But also with the square, I think it's to actually apply a softening in our mind and in our consciousness and our awareness of that inner tension, because there is a crucible energy. It's like we are caught right now in that cross of matter in such a way that it's working us. It's like the pearl, right? So we are in this kind of friction. We're in this kind of stuck state so we can be reworked by spirit, right? So there's a trust journey with that. So I would just say for all of us, when you feel stuck, when you feel in this rigid space, you are not rigid. You can't even begin to fathom all of the deep reorganization that is occurring inside of you right now in order to prepare you for this next leap that we're all in the midst of, that we're going to be seeing and feeling even more in the spring. And I will say it again. I actually want to say something that I think is really important right now. Something that one of my mentors taught me, which is that I would be, there's so much noise out there right now. I absolutely get caught up in it. I try not to, but it's almost impossible not to, I find. And I'm talking about social media. I'm talking about just what's going on in our world around us. And just that poignancy of finding our own personal role in it. And I know some of you are just having a blast, right? Especially the sacred rebels right now. They're just like doing their work, like good for you. The sacred rebels, like do it. This Aquarius energy, all the Uranus going on. And some of us are maybe a little more uncomfortable that for whatever reason, I've had a hard time with that sacred rebel externalizing it. And I have to kind of trust that too. Because there's an internal process and a reckoning with that happening inside of me. Um, but because we have so much information bombarding us, some of the storylines that we can get really caught up in are storylines that can come from the spiritual dimension, from the more political dimension, that can come from a lot of different layers but there can be a story that basically is basically saying we're screwed. Um, Everything's just going to get worse. There's no way around that. It's just bad. And or we know that for the next X number of years, it's just going to be a shit show. Even that. I want to challenge that. I want to push against that. And I'm not, I've really wrestled with this, and I don't think it's because I'm light polarized. I think it's because I actually feel like we are so much more powerful than we know. And when I look around, yeah, I get whiplash because I actually am very curious about what's happening out there. And I want to be scanning and I want to be seeing the trends and the patterns. What I'm seeing out there is that there are many people right now who are just waking up, who are just lighting up, who are standing up for what they believe in. And I see a lot of potential very negative things that could happen that then get averted at the last minute. Pay attention to that. And I also want to say something that maybe is challenging, which is that I think where we get caught, many of us, is that we think there's just one way for us to affect change. And that is problematic because a couple of things. We are opening into becoming more multi-dimensional. And we are also beginning to acknowledge and recognize that we are cyclical beings. So there is so much going on underneath the surface, so much going on in our earth right now that can't be measured or tracked by the human mind. And so there's also humbleness that's asked for, that's called for. So what my mentor taught me was that he said, if somebody is going to tell you a story that, and this can be an astrologer saying, well, you're going to be lonely for life, or, somebody is giving you some kind of a scenario where it's going to be this way for sure, and it's something that's scary and awful, question that. That is a fear tactic. And if they're trying to control you. So I agree with that 100%. I just don't think we can even begin to say that the jury's out on what's going to happen here in the US, across the planet, in the Middle East, any of that. I do not think it's a done deal. I think the astrology right now is such that we each get to make our vote in terms of coming back again and again to what we really do deeply desire and want. And I know it's hard to do that because of all the noise. And so it's not even like we can make our vision board. I think it's a little bit too um it's too raw, and again, it's too much in flux. But I do feel that we've already been making our prayers. We have been in ceremony. We have been stating what our deep desires are for very many years. And so part of what's happening right now is it's happening. We have to trust that. So sometimes if we feel like we need to again reiterate our prayers, I would actually even say if you feel you should do ceremony or you should do prayer in a particular way and you're getting kickback and you don't want to, don't. I'm saying that to myself right now too, because I was raised in a very beautiful family in so many ways, but there's a lot of should, a lot of pushing of, just Calvinist mindset of work harder, do more, try to be more perfect. Um, and I think as I'm speaking to you right now, what I'm really opening up to is that it's like I keep thinking, okay, I need to pray harder. I need to do more. I need to try to be in charge of what's going on. No, fuck no. Actually, I think probably what I need to do is have a little bit more faith because myself, like many of you, have been doing this work for many, many, many years and many, many, many lifetimes. And so for many of us, it's to soften and to allow yourself to be guided and led by love. Allow yourself to be guided and led by hope. Allow yourself to be guided and led by beauty and possibility. And remember all the prayers that you and your ancestors have made. All right, my computer's about to die. I'm going to end it there. I love you all. Please leave a comment. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Please share with others. And I'm just so excited and so honored to be with you. So much love.